everybody. I'm Hillary Atkin from the Atkin Report, and I'm delighted to welcome Siobhan Fallon Hogan, writer, producer, and star of the upcoming feature Rushed, to this edition of Hillary's Happy Hour. Siobhan, how are you doing?
I'm great, Hillary. Thanks so much for having me on. I really, really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, in Rush, you star as Barbara O'Brien, a devout Irish Catholic mom whose son is the victim of fraternity hazing. You've said you understand that hell hath no fury like a mother scorned, but tell us more about the film in which your own son, Peter Munson Hogan, also stars.
Yes, actually, it's kind of like the family Von Trapp. In the film, my daughter Sinead Hogan is also in it. My husband was a producer. So the film is about an Irish Catholic mom, like myself, from upstate New York, where I grew up. And I have three children, and they're in their late teen and 20s now. But it's basically about a mom who loses control, like we all do when your kids go off to college, and it's a real thriller, and there's some real sad moments in the film, and it keeps you on the edge of your seat. But at the beginning, there's a lot of humor because in any Irish Catholic family, there's that banter that goes back and forth. And the mother is a helicopter mom, but when things go bad at this hazing incident and the law doesn't stand on her side, she takes the law into her own hands. And that's when all hell breaks loose.
Yeah. Hi, it's Mom. Before you rush out the door to class, listen to me. I want you to say that pledge thing one more time, hon. Because you gotta know it cold. Louder! If you practice it today, tonight you'll be like, thank God Mom had me say today.
Let's party, huh? We're gonna take a shot. Pass out, baby. Bring me shots over here. Yeah, I don't think he's done. He's fine, Jesse. Jimmy, can you hear me? He's not responding, guys.
After an extensive state police department investigation, all parties have found the university not liable.
I've been just sitting around wallowing, and I can't do that anymore. I gotta go do something important for your brother.
The university investigator said that he drank too much.
They say it was my son's fault.
He was my only child.
Senator, how many kids have to die before someone's liable?
Well, it's tradition.
Don't look at me. This guy just thinks he's the funniest in town.
Tied him to a chair because he passed out,
I'll show you what's funny.
and then they peed on him.
You got that?
What are you saying to me?
Send her the photo. How you doing?
Good.
Well, at the beginning of the film, it quickly became apparent not only was she a helicopter mom, but definitely a tiger mom. So, but what inspired you specifically to write this particular tale?
Well, being that I have three kids, I think any mom can relate to the fact that when they go out at night from the time they're 16 or whenever they get out or sneak out for the first time, or you go to their bed and their pillows there and their fake body, like my crazy kids, you worry. And when I was growing up, there was no cell phones. So you were like, your imagination could run wild. But when you're a mom, and you've got a cell phone and you're like, they haven't texted me back. They haven't texted me back. What's going on? What's going on? And then the more you don't hear from them, the more your mind runs wild. Well, then they go off to college. And of course, they blow you off. You don't hear from them. And then, so it came from the point of view of the worry that you feel from the time that kid goes out. The first couple hours are okay. Midnight hits, you're like, maybe 1 o'clock, you haven't heard from, you're like, oh no. And you just worry. And then you read about so many things in the paper that go wrong in college, whether it's a fraternity or a sorority or all kinds of things go wrong. And you just think, this can't be. And then when it becomes you, what do you do? Do you sit back or do you take action? So that's what this movie's about.
Well, you've also done a lot of episodic television recently, including roles on Billions, Love Life, Elementary, and American Gods. And of course, famously, a while back, Seinfeld. But what are some of the highlights for you of these roles?
Well, of course, Seinfeld was always, I loved all the shows. I'm always so grateful for every job and every part that I get. But Seinfeld, my first episode on Seinfeld, they didn't know whether they're going to get picked up for the first season. And I never saw a group of people work harder. So, and they were funny, but they worked at really hard. So, it takes hard work to have a great product. And then, of course I was on SNL, and look at Lorne Michaels. He's been in the business for how many years because he works his rear end off. It takes hard work to have greatness. So I've learned from the greats that this is what it takes. And when I wrote this movie, I put the same kind of energy into it, and I grabbed from people, that I've, like Robert Patrick plays my husband in it. And, from the Terminator, he was in Walk the Line. He was in Elementary. He's been in many shows. And I just knocked on and tapped on every favor, every friend. And I just said, hey, come on board and help me out. And so that's who's in Rushed. Where Jake Weary, who's really hitting it now in Animal Kingdom, I was in Fred, the movie, with him. He was the next door neighbor when he was 19. Now he's like hitting it big, and he's in, as I said, Animal Kingdom, but he's fabulous in this role of this bad boy fraternity boy. And my son, he plays a fraternity boy in it. And these kids that are fraternity boys in it are just fantastic. So, yeah.
Well, I've had the opportunity to see a preview screening of it, and I absolutely agree. The boys in the fraternity are amazing. So
yeah, really scary. My son handpicked the extras because he knew them. The fraternity scene is in my house. That's my house decorated. All the windows are blacked out. He came home and he said, "What? This doesn't look like a fraternity." And all the boys redecorated it to make it look like an authentic fraternity. So it looks like the real deal, and the music, the rappers in it, like Fat Nick, OG Macko. We have some amazing music in this film that you'd hear blasting out of any fraternity.
Well, this is a blast from the past. You already mentioned it, but you were an SNL cast member alongside Chris Farley, Chris Rock, Adam Sandler, Mike Myers, Phil Hartman, Julia Sweeney, Tim Meadows, Dana Carvey. Those are just a few, but we'd love to hear about some of your experiences.
Well, I mean, it was glory days for sure. When I got on SNL, I had been in LA. I'd written a one-woman show. I did the one-woman show, and I went to SNL, and of course it was tense, and the cast picked who was going to be on it. And I remember we all went out afterwards, and Adam was there and Chris Rock, and they're like, we think it's you. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'll never forget. I called my father on the golf course at like 7 a.m. I was like, is my dad there? Because I called home. My mother's like, oh, your father's golfing. I said, Dad, I got on. He's like, dynamite, Siobhan, but I got to go back to the 19th hole. Anyway, so it was unbelievable. I mean, Chris Farley and I were very good friends. We were young. I mean, it was an incredible time, and it opened up so many doors for me. I'm forever grateful to SNL.
Well, these episodes live on, and luckily we can watch them whenever we want. One of the beauties of the streaming age.
Yeah.
Let's take it back over to the film side, and you've appeared in some legendary blockbusters, including Forrest Gump and Men in Black. So tell us a little bit about being in those films.
Well, it's interesting because Men in Black, when I went into audition, and Forrest Gump, I went in for different roles, for smaller roles. And I would say, no, I don't want to audition for that role. Men in Black, I said, I want to audition for Edgar's wife because I'm from upstate New York and I understand this. So, I mean, I loved working with Barry Sonnenfeld. He was awesome. And Vincent D'Onofrio was just a generous, great actor. Men in Black, I mean, with Tommy Lee Jones and Will Smith, they're just fabulous. I mean, I just feel so unbelievably lucky and blessed to have been in those movies. And then, what happens is when you do a movie like this, Rushed, then you have some street cred, and people are like, oh, she was in Men in Black and Forrest Gump. Maybe I'll tune in. What happened to that old dinosaur? What happened to that old fossil? That old fossil came up with a movie. Yeah, no, those were the glory days. That's for sure. Those were the big budget movies, where they'd walk around like sushi at 10 o'clock in the morning, like, anybody hungry? I'm like, didn't we just eat breakfast? But anyway, that was really something.
I'm sorry. It's obvious that you came up in the comedy world. So Siobhan, we are wrapping up our happy hour. But I want to propose a toast to you and the success of Rushed, which comes out in theaters and on Amazon and Apple Plus TV on August 27th.
Hillary, I just want to propose a toast to you. You're beautiful and you're hilarious. You have a great personality. I took out my glass that my best friends gave to me when I turned 50. She's just about as attractive as I am. And thanks a million for having me on. I hope everyone comes out to see Rushed August 27th. And it's going to be on in the theaters, but also on all kinds of video on demand. Vertical Entertainment's releasing it. And I really thank you, Hillary. You are something else, sister.
Thank you. Cheers to you, Siobhan.
Cheers to you, Hillary. God bless. Should we drink it now?